So, good morning, everybody. Already happy that many joined the meeting. We of course have now 2 more minutes left. We just want to take this time a bit for technology check. So, if you can hear me, could you maybe just put the thumbs up in this GoToWebinar side panel that we can see? Okay, I see one person put it up. How is it for the rest? Can you hear us? Okay, so it seems, yeah, perfect. Great. Thank you all. A lot of hands raised, so it seems that we are set from a technology perspective. Great. So I see more and more people joining. I guess we'll most probably start like some seconds after the 10 o'clock. Just to give everybody enough time, but yeah, it will not take a lot of time. So already 40 people, great. So let's see if we are somehow getting a new records today. So see a few more people have joined. Good morning, everybody. We will wait a few more seconds until everybody has settled down. So just grab a coffee, make yourself comfortable. We will very, very soon start. So yeah, at the 50 people. Great. So more people are joining. Good. So yeah, let's maybe wait 30 more seconds that everybody is settled in. Oh. So 5 more people joining. Well, for the new ones that didn't hear it before, if you can hear me well, please just use this thumbs up message to ensure that everybody is well connected to technology. And yeah, a few more thumbs up are coming. Great. Very good. But now it feels like the big round. No, 5 more people. Oh, yeah. Now it's everybody has finished the last meeting and it's now coming. So give it a bit more time. There are now 6 people at once joining. But now the names are appearing. I can see that everything looks fine. Perfect. Great. But then let's get started. I would like to welcome you, all of you, to this webinar. Very happy that on this morning, so many of you are interested in patents and are joining us. Yeah, my name is Victor Rudolph, as you may already know. I see from the list, I've been in touch with many of you already, but the ones that don't know me, I'm the head of our customer success team, that are basically the people at IMIP that help all of our customers to achieve what they want to achieve with IMIP. Apart from this, I'm as well responsible for a product to make sure that it helps you in the best way and gets developed in the right direction. But I mean, enough about me. Let's jump into our real topic here. You may know that since last year we have a bit of a series with special guests where we address different important topics for you as the end users. And today is a topic like somehow very close to my heart, a bit about collaboration. And I'm very happy that I have 2 speakers with me today. So we on the one hand have Dimitris Giannoccaro with us. I think you see him on the very right-hand side. Just as a brief background, Dimitris has studied here in Stockholm at KTH, electrical engineering, has worked in the industry, also in the wind power part, but as well later on at ABB in a patent and IP position. He was as well an examiner at the Swedish Patent Office and is one of the founders of IMIP and now the CEO and head of sales. So welcome, Dimitris. Nice to have you with us today.
Thank you so much, Victor. It's always a pleasure to have these webinars together with you. So thank you.
Yeah. And then apart from this, you see in the middle between Dimitris and me, Zack Amir, as well. Happy to have you on board. Zack has been an engineer as well as a product manager in the industry before. Since 2007, he is really very active in the IP space. And he is the managing director of Patent Test, an IP firm. So Zack, thank you to have you on board, and warm welcome.
Thank you, Victor. Amazing to be here to join you guys on this seminar.
Perfect. Great. Well, then let's jump in. So if we first have a look a bit on the agenda, so for all of you to know, we will have around 50 minutes of the presentation, so that we have then around 5, 6, 7 minutes left for any questions that you have. And very important, just at the beginning, you may see this GoToMeeting side panel next to you. If you have any questions now throughout the presentation, please use this questions side panel, and then we make sure to either directly put it into the presentation, or otherwise we will answer that at the end of the session. We will start, of course, short introduction and background. I mean, why is that topic of importance? Then we go into quite typical challenges. And of course, as always, we want to provide some good best practices and ideas. So meaning towards the later part of the session, we really jump into some examples and of course have some conclusions. Good. Then if we proceed on to the next slide, of course, we would like to take a bit of an introduction side. So meaning, who are the people that are presenting here today? If you start on the left-hand side with IMIP, you see we have been around now for 11 years, so there was a big anniversary last year, and our key focus is to really provide a tool for handling third-party patents, so meaning monitorings and collaboration, and as well, of course, the patent search part. The reason why we actually started IMIP is very closely related to this topic, because when Dimitris and myself worked out in the industry together, we really had a big challenge in how to collaborate on patents and how we could set up knowledge databases. And there was always a challenge that data was somehow lost in email inboxes, in phone calls, and when people left the companies, the knowledge was just gone. So that's what we want to solve with the IMIP platform. And as of now, as you can see, we have 3 offices in Germany, Sweden, and in Stettin. We have around 350 customers worldwide and around 8,000 users really using the tool frequently. On the other hand, we have the Patent Test with us. They are a European-based patent search analysis company operating basically all over the world, and they really have a number of quite senior patent consultant and patent information specialists, so meaning they are conducting prior art searches, FTO searches, all kinds of these consultancy work. And I mentioned at IMIP, we had yesterday our 10 years anniversary, and I think what's good for Patent Test, they have this year the 20 years anniversary, so some of their congratulations. And with that said, as well, maybe a good hand over to you, Zack. Please, let's go ahead. Why are we collaborating here?
Yeah, thank you, Victor, for the intro, and of course, once again, thank you for inviting me to join you and Dimitris this webinar. Very exciting. So why IMIP and Patent Test decide to collaborate? As Victor mentioned in the introduction, both companies have managed to create an impressive client portfolio, and through years of experience, built reputation for supporting companies ranging from startups, attorneys, to large corporations. We actually realize that by joining forces, we can better help you and grow faster. Dimitris, I think when you and me met a couple of years back, you immediately recognized the potential there.
Yeah, of course. I mean, exactly what you said there, Zack. It really made sense somehow, because the once they were onboarded into our platform, once they had a process, implemented, and once they started to capture documents, we got different type of questions from our customers. Oh, we have found a pattern of interest. Can you help us to conduct a invalidity search, and then we said no, we can't, because just offering like a platform. So when you contacted me, for me it was like, yeah, this was meant to be. So I think this is a great start of a great cooperation.
Great. So let's let me try to explain how we can basically how we might be able to help you. So let's talk about two examples we had recently. A few weeks back, a pharma client from Germany identified a crucial patent application with a clear infringement potential. We were asked to conduct an invalidity search to collect information that might help the client prepare for the opposition and possibly invalidate the patent. So this is one typical case. In a different case, the client received our help recently to create monitoring and strategy and search strings. And this is where we might be able to help you whenever you need the help. But in our first analysis, we noticed that the area is well covered with competitors' patents. The discussions with our clients led to several freedom to operate searches to establish the clearance the client needed. And so this is also a typical case where through the monitorings you will find document and you might need our help either to invalidate or to create your freedom to operate. So just before we move on, a couple of questions to make sure the technology is working for all of us.
Exactly. Great. Then thanks, Zack, for the summary. So first of all, as you see here, and what would really help us as well to fine-tune the coming slides a little bit is getting the understanding of who you are and what you are interested in. But first of all, of course, I would like to understand your weather situation. At least here in Stockholm, it's a little bit crazy. So how is it on your end? I see I had expected a lot of sunny things, but let's see. A lot of cloudy, okay. So yesterday I had a touch point with some Danish companies, and compared to Sweden and Germany, they really had only clouds. So let's see, but the thing is really nice to just see sunny and a bit of cloudy. So perfect. I hope it's not too hot on some days, but great. So we are getting warmer. So let's continue then maybe to the next slide. As addressed, for us important to understand what is your background and what is then as well your interest. So meaning, what is your current role in the company? How are you connected to patents? So we have a number of IP managers and okay, as well the responsible for patent. Oh, quite a big, good mix. So no R&D manager. Okay, now first R&D manager jumps in as well. I was already a bit skeptical, but otherwise it feels a quite good broad range, and that's good to see because we have some, of course, key things for those responsible, but as well really on the R&D side. So I guess we will have a good mix for all of you. So let's continue.
Great, Victor, thank you. We had a couple of webinars lately, and in many ways they are all connected. So let's do a quick recap on what we discussed in previous webinar sessions. Dimitris, I believe you in class were doing the first one and discussed the development process and phase gate model, right?
That's correct, actually. That was the first time when we started to introduce the gate stage model in terms of how that can be combined with a patent monitoring process. And then I believe also Claes gave us some very good insights of, how it works in general from the idea conception until the commercialization. It was very good and insightful.
Great. So let's discuss briefly the different gates and how we are integrating IP searches and information into each phase. At gate 1, in the idea and scoping phase, we emphasize the need for thorough state-of-the-art searches to gain a clear and current understanding of the technological landscape. Here it's all about making informed decisions with accurate data, assessing our IP portfolio, understanding the need for licensing, and strategizing on how to protect our innovations. At gate 2, 3 and 4, we enter the development phase. We already have a solid understanding of the technological playing field and competitors. We initiate patent monitoring on the IMIP, and we let the advanced IMIP tool track new information and changes that might be relevant to our project. This is normally also when we find possible patenting opportunities, and we use the patentability searches to fill in any blanks, and we can, of course, refine the monitoring that we have if necessary. And by gate 5, and prior to launching our project, if we have done everything correctly from start, the freedom to operate review should have very few surprises, mainly dealing with new project features or possibly unique production aspects that were not known from start. So let's move to our next slide, how to find optimal structure. Victor, I think this webinar, it's you and me that discussed how to create a company internal database and how to find this optimal structure, right?
Exactly, that was, so to say, the follow-up webinar on the gate stage model. And to my experience, in particular from the customer success side, this is really the most critical thing where we are involved at the beginning when a customer starts. So how could we efficiently save and store data in IMIP?
Yeah, so let's go through it. Choosing this right structure for your internal IP database is crucial. We explored 3 main structures: centralized, decentralized, and hybrid solution. Let's look at the centralized approach. It's ideal for organizations with many interconnected technologies and products. It supports extensive knowledge sharing and streamlined patent processes. Decentralized structure. On the other hand, the decentralized approach is best for distinct, independent departments or products, suitable for lower patenting activities and possibly need-to-know information access. So just to summarize the differences, centralized systems offer broad access and efficiency, while the decentralized system provide tailored management for distinct areas. Then, of course, there is the hybrid solution. So for many companies and organizations, the hybrid approach offers the best of both centralized and decentralized systems. It combines centralized control with decentralized flexibility for both global and local management. So it's like centralized core activity with possibly independent local management. It allows tailored IP management to specific departmental needs while still maintaining overall coordination. So summarizing, the hybrid approach balances broad oversight with specialized needs, making it adaptable to diverse IP management requirements. Of course, these past webinars, they are all on the IMIP homepage, so you're welcome. You're welcome to go there and listen again to webinars if you need. And of course, if you need further trainings, we're happy to provide it. So just contact the IMIP team, and we'll take you from there. So let's talk about our today's webinar, collaboration and challenges. Let's move. When it comes to collaboration, our key challenges include ensuring that all stakeholders in the company have visibility and access to the relevant IP data. This is crucial for maintaining information integrity while preventing information silos. Furthermore, creating, assessing, and tracking tasks without a streamlined workflow platform often leads to missed deadlines and responsibilities falling through the cracks. The increased communication overhead due to poor integration of communication tools like emails and reminders further complicate our workflow, making our operation less efficient. So how to let's see the picture. How to distribute relevant patterns. In our current workflow setup, our operation rely heavily on manual processes such as exporting data to Excel, PowerPoint, or PDF for distribution and review. This results in a scattered approach when relevant information might not be up to date or readily accessible across different teams. This, of course, includes IP managers, R&D, engineering, and legal. We often find ourselves searching through emails for specific information or dependent on external providers for updated data. This kind of disjoint systems leads to inefficiencies and lack of real-time information, which is very crucial in today's fast-paced environment. So how do we get everyone involved? Our departments face several crucial challenges. Different departments often operate in silos, each managing their own export of data, and that leads, of course, to inconsistencies. There's a huge effort involved in collecting feedback, which is not only time-consuming, but it's also prone to errors due to lack of current data. We normally need a substantial internal storage solution to handle all our IP data, and above all, there is a glaring lack of transparency across departments. So all these together collectively hinder our ability to manage IP efficiently and respond swiftly to new development. Dimitris will take us through the workflow and collaboration features on the IMIP platform and do some live demonstrations. Before he takes over, a couple of questions from Victor.
Okay. Thanks, Zack, for the challenges. I as well can really relate from my past to a lot of them, so it's really a big puzzle. But before we continue to how, let's say, you could approach this problem, first of all, I think the quite important question to the audience here, like, where do you store at the moment the important patent information that, of course, you would like to somehow use for collaboration purposes and knowledge purposes? Of course, there are, let's say, a number of IMIP clients, but as well email attachments, SharePoint. Interesting. Nobody has yet used the Excel option. Okay, no. Exactly when I say that comes, because normally what I hear, particularly with many new clients, that they really come from Excel. So interesting that it's so few. But yeah, but then the most of you really have already, let's say, a digital way. So let's continue.
Great, yeah. So this is the point where I'm supposed to step in. So how do we really solve it? And I think that's really the interesting point. And before we step into it, I would like to share a story with you. And that was actually when I was an R&D project manager in ABB. Usually the way we were at least storing the data was through this so-called decentralized way that Zack expressed to me. And I, in my role, found it very cumbersome to get some type of transparency, because imagine when you have 700 R&D engineers in a business unit and you have some very big competitors around you, and you're also one company that always takes the lead. And of course, what made it always so cumbersome was that we never knew what others were saying about the same pattern that we captured. And somehow this was something that I was always missing. So I think what also Zack mentioned about the importance, if you're maybe a bigger group, you should maybe consider the global portfolio. We will step into that. So obviously, I think that one solution, of course, to solve these challenges is to create a place where you store all the patterns in one big folder. And once you have these information available in the folder, usually you involve the respective team. And when I say team, it can be like a product development team that works in a specific project. It can also be your product manager, but it can also be a specific R&D person looking into something that they would like to perhaps commercialize. And I think the whole idea by having it in that way is that all of the team members will be able to see into each other's data. I will also show it to you very soon, but that gives an enormous transparency, and that I think would have helped us a lot, at least when I was working in ABB for many years ago. Of course, now also as mentioned, the decentralized way is of course a possibility, but then you start to create the small silos between your teams. And I really would like to emphasize exactly what Victor highlighted, that we should really try to make sure that you do it what fits your company best. I can't say that decentralized will not work. I think it can work outstanding as long as you have that structure. But have in mind that in every folder that you then create in a decentralized process, you have other freedoms that you don't usually have in a global structure. For instance, you can create individual I would say rules when things should trigger. You can also activate specific taggings available. Let's put it like that. And of course, as we also talked about, once you start to involve more than one person, because ideally you could have one person doing everything and then this is not a problem, but once you have at least two people working together, the big problem is how do we collaborate? And regardless of who you want to involve, is it R&D? Is it my pattern information expert that wants to share data? Is it maybe the R&D group? All of them need to exchange information based on the knowledge. It can be technical input, it can be legal assessment, it can be a decision to perhaps acquire a company, to perhaps license a patent. And with that said, it might sound so easy when you make it like a process, but on the other hand, it can be quite cumbersome. And actually what I wanted to share with you is a typical workflow. I don't say this is the only workflow. And I don't know, maybe a question to you, Victor. I mean, you have talked to many big customers of IMIP. How many workflows have you been, I don't know, discussing with our customers? Is it 1, 10, 50?
It's a very good question, and there are like tons of different workflows. So every company has somehow unique specifics. Some are very, let's say, sharing active in general, where a lot of people are involved. Some have like very strict flows who should do the first step, the second and third step. But all in all, I think the majority have many of the parts that you show here in this field. So where it's really critical about, you know, getting the right tags, the right rankings we'll talk about, but there are a number of different ways, and that's as well the beauty of this flexibility in IMIP, that you can always reach what you want because it's not locked to one specific flow.
Yeah, Yeah. No, I would expect to hear that somehow, because there is no one recipe fits to all. Let's put it like this, and I think that's most probably the reality. And again, I think what is important here, Victor, and I think you will most probably support it, is that you make sure that it supports your process. And if you have a gate stage model that you are using with this, I think also Zack mentioned, if it's 5 steps or 7 steps in it, make sure that this somehow supports that, so you don't create a new process on top of it. But let's go a little bit now and dive into my slide here. So let's assume that you have now a patent information specialist that have collected patents from some place. It can be through a monitoring, it can actually be through a search that they have conducted. And then, of course, this information needs to be shared with the product manager. And of course, in order to get some feedback, we highly advise to of course, how should I put it, make a process that doesn't become difficult to interpret the relevancy. And our advice is to always use taggings, because then you force everyone to think the same way, so you really compare apples with apples. And that means if you have a tagging that you call interesting, everybody should know what the interesting means. And if you have a tagging that you consider and you tag it as not relevant, it's important that you really make it clear, what does it mean not relevant? I have seen cases actually where not relevant for one person means for my project is really relevant, meanwhile for another person it's like, for this company this is not relevant at all. So already there you have a difference, because the first example I just highlighted is not relevant for my project, could be not relevant today, but who knows, maybe in 3 years from today, if we enter that part, it could become relevant. Of course, then the idea is to get that feedback through a product manager, and then they can put this tag. We will come into that. They can comment and give you the feedback, and assume now that this document that you share with the product manager considers to be super crucial for your business. It's highly advised that you then further on then share it with a patent attorney to perhaps make a legal assessment. Because what I think is important to have in mind, and I can't say how many times I hear that sometimes you expect R&D people to do a legal assessment, and that's what usually scares R&D engineers. And I just want to tell all of you here in the room, make clear to your R&D team that they're supposed to do a technical assessment, because they know the technology in and out. Then when it comes to obviously analyzing claims, what do they mean? Is there a protection? I mean, is this covered in the description? Is there information enough that could make this problematic for us? This is where you should highly discuss it with the patent attorney, take it from there. Because have also in mind, maybe this patent application was recently published and we don't really still know if this patent application will become a granted patent, because the granted patent can create a new set of claims. So you understand already now that that's where you need the lawyer, and most probably that should be stored in a different folder. Of course, once you have done that assessment, the idea is that you should make that document available to the entire organization. So whenever you have R&D engineers that wants to conduct a search, instead of telling them go and do a global search in 180 million patents plus, let them go through your own patent library that you have created with the taggings, because then obviously they can use it. And now talking about the taggings, this is a little bit where I would like to give you some good insights. Of course, I have seen many different ways throughout my years in this space, and maybe now a question again to you, Victor. What is the most extreme case? And when I say most extreme, how many taggings have you seen in one organization that made you like, whoa?
Yeah, a very good question, and I've really seen quite extreme cases. I mean, imagine as well, you are a big company, you have thousands of employees, you maybe have 200 departments with different focus areas. So I think we are in these cases talking about 8,000, 9,000 tags sometimes. Because imagine as well, I think we will see that as well at some point, that you can even for tags have hierarchy levels, that you have a top level, and then you can make, you know, top technology, sub technology one, sub technology one. So meaning, I think the record is even like 12,000 tags or something. So really, but this really allows this, what we talk about, the collaboration, because then it's 100% clear to very quickly find what is now relevant for me, and so it has a very, very big potential. But it's always a trade-off. If you're a smaller company, it's maybe overkill to have these many tags because you have to maintain them as well. So
yeah, good. And yeah, now I will not show an example of 10,000 taggings. I will actually just show you a very basic example of how these tags could be structured. And I would say ideally you should have one group defining the relevancy and the not relevancy, and of course one tag telling you whether you need to get access to a patent lawyer, because that is super clear for everyone in the organization that obviously, okay, this is relevant for our business, and perhaps we also need to make an assessment and get like a green light for our, let's say, freedom to operate, a clearance report somehow. And then I would also advise, as you are involving your R&D team and product managers, add the categories of products and technology. They will help you to create an amazing library, because and that library can later on be used not just to give them a source of information, but also an amazing, I would say, way to show upwards to the organization, your management, or let's say the board, of where do we stand versus the competitors. And that taxonomy will really be related to the company's products and technology. And then you really compare again apples with apples, obviously, because if you have a product name out there, let's say we call it product number A, then if you put that sticker on other patents from your competitors, you immediately know, okay, we have this solution, but they have these alternatives out there that actually does the same. And that's so much more valuable to have as a discussion when you talk to your strategic team of how obviously to proceed. And then what I also would like to emphasize before we step into the platform is that use also a ranking star. I have seen when again, in my previous life, that everybody writes in their own way. I have seen comments like, oh, we do the same thing, we can't do that. Oh, the other person said, this is super, super interesting because of this, that. But the question is, how should I interpret it as a decision maker? So we also advise that you could have used a ranking that you define for your users of how to do it. So like a 5-star would mean technically very critical. And that's again because of the technical assessment. Meanwhile, the 1-star would mean, it is somehow relevant, but really not critical because it's more like prior art for me as a technical person. And then, of course, the lawyer, if required, can then make an assessment if that is, of course, of necessity. Good. So let's then step into our question. So I see that someone has already been one step ahead of me. And of course, we would like now to know a little bit how you perhaps do those activities that we just talked about in order to save, share, and manage tasks. Are you yes or no, or I don't know? That's also a valid answer, I would say. Let's see how this is developed. I expect to see a mix, but I'm glad to see that the yes is slightly bigger, but even the no is also growing. And I would advise you that maybe are on the no, feel free to reach out to Victor's team and have a discussion. I think that would be very nice, because then we can really show you how you can save it, and then we can take it from there. Because again, I think every company have their own way of working with things, but then at least we can navigate you through this jungle. And of course, the one I don't know, that's not something bad with that. It can also mean that maybe that's not your responsibility to do it. But if you're curious, also feel free to reach out. And the ones with yes, good work, and hopefully you do it efficiently. But I think you can always make things more efficient. So don't hesitate as well to reach out to us if you have some question. Okay, I think now we are actually ready to step into the platform. So for this webinar, I have now created the use case that I think could be relevant for you. And just to put everything in context, we discussed that there are 3 ways to store information. The one way is to create a global portfolio where you store all your patents in one. The other was to separate them in different business units. I think exactly what Zack was talking about. And then, of course, you can then assign specific folders to the specific teams or groups. And that means that one patent can be stored in multiple folders. So just to show an example of this, this means obviously that this patent here could also be stored somewhere else. And then what you need to do is, of course, to have a look at it and what that would mean for your organization. But in my use case today, I will focus on the global patent portfolio. And of course, I'm going to use now the opportunity here to show you how you can actually involve people in this process. So assuming now that you have this list of documents now in your possession, you have them obviously in this folder that you call like a global, and perhaps you want to involve people in it. I think first of all, what you should always have a look at is, have we discussed this pattern somewhere else? And if you have this little small icon, and in IMIP we call it the deja vu, it will actually tell you that this pattern that you are looking at right now has actually been stored somewhere else. And you see now in my structure, I'm a little bit of a hybrid, because yes, I have a global patent portfolio. I think I started with that, but I also have another folder that I call FTO, because if I'm now patent responsible, maybe I'm involved in other clearance reports. And then I can actually with one click also see how this patent was tagged. I can, for instance, also see what was commented about it. And if I think that's enough, all good. But let's say I'm not sure that this helps me in this specific assessment I'm doing. What I can do now is that I can take this specific patent and then with one click, obviously share it directly with my colleague. That would be obviously the one case of doing it. But before we step into the process of the specific cases, you know that we talked about the taggings, the rankings. So what you can do always in your organization is that you should always define your structure. And here you see the, I would say, really the easy way to create the first attempt. So if you don't have any taggings, I would advise you to at least try to mirror what I'm showing you right now, because I think that's a very good step. If you have already some tagging structure, continue with that, because that's most probably something that is very useful. And you see I'm using the same categories as I showed you in the PPT, and you can call it whatever. And as you know, you can use different colors. I like to color them even in the same. So if you have a subgroup under product, it's always more easier to visualize in that way. And then of course, I have also created a technical ranking. I will come into that with my 5 stars. And you can create as many as you want, but at least I would advise you to have one technical ranking available. Now, I think what also Zack touched upon was how to involve people. And as you know, obviously in our platform, you can involve as many people as you want usually, but of course you can define of what they should do and not be able to do in the platform. So if you have an R&D member that should access information, I would advise you to involve them and give them like a limited access user. And that is literally where you need to involve them in specific projects. That's more like, okay, I want to grab information from you. But of course, if you have more, I would say advanced users, you can also give them different type of users rights. And then of course, they can do so much more things. So going now back to the case that we talked about, if I go back to my global portfolio here, and then let's take this patent that I wanted to share. So now in this case, I will now share this patent. And of course, what I want to mention now is that when I share this patent, the user that will receive it will most probably see all the taggings that are available that you have created. And I think that's one of the differences that we talked about in the global versus the decentralized process or storing possibilities, is that in the decentralized, you can actually select which tags should be available, and then you actually make it easy for the user to know what to select. But if you don't have that many taggings available, you can also, I would say, give the whole list to your team members. And then by obviously clicking now on this specific sharing button, you can now send a review request. And in this case, I'm going to use my fellow colleague Zoe. She's now supposed to be an R&D engineer, and you can write your question directly into the platform of have a look on XYZ. And of course, as you see, the results are deadline connected. That's to make sure that I receive my feedback when I want it in time. Of course, I can change it to whatever I think is more reasonable for me to finalize my request, and then maybe I realize, oh, actually it's not just Zoe I want to involve, perhaps also I want to involve another colleague, so I will also now use Samuel in this specific case. So now I'm sharing it with 2 people, and you can actually have a group of people, so you don't have to always add the names, and then you can just type in engineering team or gearbox team, and then they will appear. And once now I click now on share, an email will now go to my 2 users, and they will get a notification through Outlook, obviously if they're not logged in, and most probably we should expect them to be logged in because they have most of the other things to do. And this is quite beautiful now in our system, is that you as an IP specialist or coordinator don't have to go through your Outlook sent emails. You can actually click on the task section, the request, and then you have a very good view of what has been done and not be done. So that gives a very nice way to have a transparency in the system. And of course, what is also very good to know is that if somebody sends you a request, I would really say that this will also give you the possibility to respond back to them. So then you can look into the tasks. Luckily now I don't have any tasks back on me, so I don't have to be that stressed at this certain point. So now we see, and because I'm logged in, the system notifies me that Zoe has actually conducted the assessment. But now imagine perhaps that I haven't been logged in and I log in, let's say 1 week later on. What you can see directly now, if I look at this specific case, I can see out of my 2 people, I can see that 1 person has now done the assessment and Samuel has not. So I can now easily now have a look, obviously, what was said about these specific patents. And then, of course, if you click on that specific link that was given to us, then we can see directly in real time what Zoe considered this patent to be relevant in. So it's a relevant topic. Technically, she finds it super relevant, and then we can also find that there is a comment, because in this process we always want comments if you put that on interesting, obviously. And now at this point I can now take a decision to see, okay, interesting, because in the other project that we did maybe 1 year ago, we also find it interesting, so perhaps we should now involve our lawyer, because it starts to get a little bit crucial. So what you could now do, as mentioned, is that you can now send it further to your lawyer, and then you do it exactly in the same way, and then you could just type it in this process. And then perhaps, let's say now that your lawyer is not registered as a user, this is actually not a problem at all, because once you start to type in an email that is not as a registered user, you can invite them as a guest for a certain time in the platform. And maybe a question to you, Zack, what is your experience when you have been working with clients? You know, is it also necessary to involve people outside your own organization sometimes? What is your experience there?
Yeah, of course, you're right. There's always, most companies will have their lawyer or their search and information experts, and many companies are using this method to share it with us. In most cases, they will create us as a user in their system. This way they can always share information with us, and we can share back information. Yeah. But sometimes they can do it like this. If they think it's best for them, they can simply use us as external.
Interesting. And I think this is also what I wanted now to take the opportunity, because if you have a workflow, it requires that you're very process driven and can always remind yourself about the different tasks. But what I also would like to maybe highlight to you is that in IMIP's platform, there's also a way to automatize those specific tasks. So let's say now again that in this specific, I would say, folder that we are working in, you can actually design specific rules in order not to miss out any important actions. So you saw now the process I showed you that I actively had, obviously, to remind my lawyer once Zoe put something on super relevant. But let's say now you want to create like a rule that you say is called contact patent attorney. And then you say, whenever someone puts the tag in contact IP, you remember this red little tag, then perhaps you want this to go directly to a specific recipe. So imagine now that we would have Victor as our patent attorney in the organization. I could actually give him a read-write access to the entire patent document, and then I could standardize the message. Please contact, let's say R&D engineer, take action on, and then it could be like activate monitoring, something like this. And once I now click on save, what will now happen is that whenever someone puts the document on contact IP, and mail will automatically go to the lawyer. And then in this case, Victor then would be able to actually take necessary actions and then put it on a legal status watch and so on and so forth. And that's another process, obviously. But now, just to wrap up a little bit this typical use case, I mean, okay, what's in it now for the company by working in this proposed process that we have here? I would say there is a huge benefit, as I told you about, that this is your source of knowledge that you're creating over time, because this complete library that you have created over the years, you can actually conduct a search within that library. You can tell the system now, just show me interesting patterns would be an example. And perhaps you want to show, okay, I just want to see now taggings that really goes, let's say up to 5, between 3 and 5. Let's say that would be the case. And once you apply the filter, obviously this specific pattern now that Zoe did is appearing. But imagine over time, it could be 10 or 20 patterns that you perhaps having. Or let's say you need to speak to the management and say, okay, you know what we need to do now? We need to say how many crucial patterns has been detected. And then you could theoretically say contact IP. And then you can then conduct the filter on it, and then you maybe realize that you have, oh, we have actually one patent here, and then say, yeah, out of the 3,000 patents we have monitored throughout the years, we currently just have one patent that we are looking if it's going to become something in that specific country. So, which means in a gate stage model, this is beautiful, because when an engineer is about to start from this G0 point that Zack talked about, this idea, tell them to search there, because except of these taggings and rankings, you can also do this extreme full text search in that library. So whatever the right here will be in your stored library and not the complete patent database. Of course, I could speak forever about those topics. I mean, this is something that is very, very close to my heart. But I think of today, I think this is more than enough. I don't know whether you, Zack, and Victor wants to add something into this specific use case, or if we feel ready.
Yeah, I think you pretty much touch it. We can all speak about it forever here. And of course, we might need to do it in similar seminars to extend the knowledge of the clients. But as you said, the most important is to create this internal database, because if you really follow the structure, the state of the art, and you fill in the information, and then eventually you don't have a blind eye to anything. You're always up to date on the information.
Great. But then let's come to some of the last slide, a bit of a summary from what you've seen now throughout the last 40-50 minutes so far. So I think first of all, starting from the challenges, of course, you know that there are a lot of different people involved in the patent activities, and therefore, of course, it's one of the key challenges to somehow efficiently involve them and make sure that everybody really gets the data that they need. Then, of course, second of all, we have every week around 100,000+ patent documents popping up, so it's a huge amount of data we are handling with, and it's just nowadays impossible that one person handles it. So there's a huge need for using collaborative activities to be able to go through the vast amount of documents. Then a little bit as the summary here, and what I think is important for really having a good collaborative setup is first of all the storage structure. We talked about centralized, decentralized, or potentially the hybrid way. So meaning that you and your organization clearly communicate, okay, we are following this rule, and only then you can really succeed, so that it's clear for everybody. Apart from this, in order to ensure like sufficient work of collaboration, you need to use some tools for that. And therefore, like Dimitris showed, if you clearly see, okay, I'm opening a list and there's already a 5-star ranking, I directly know what that means. And I can really, with the reviews, those comments, make knowledge sharing. Apart from this, the flexibility is important. Because sometimes you may need to share the single document, like Dimitris said, a critical one, but even you need to sometimes share the whole list with people in groups. So you need to have multiple paths to go. And one really critical thing is really this rules part, that you can automatically ensure that if anyone in your organization finds a critical pattern, that automatically, like an IP responsible person is informed, that he can follow up the process, because we are all human beings. Sometimes there are other priorities and we may forget to regularly check manually, are there new 5 stars, are there new red tag patterns. So really important to have these rules that automatically check and follow up. And then, of course, the last important thing, may it be the storage structure, may it be the tags, the rankings, or the workflow, there's no one-fits-all solution. So the one thing that we from the customer success team, we do in the onboarding phase with customers, sit down, talk, understand what are your specific needs, and then create a tailor-made solution that helps you with your pattern work in the most efficient way. And if we do that, if we have a good collaborative workflow in place, I think there are, of course, many advantages, but I think the 3 biggest benefits is really risk mitigation, because there's not just the one person that knows everything. There are basically in the whole organization experts, so you really get the right input at the right time in the right quality to make sure you don't infringe. Now you can really save time, because if I need 10 hours to analyze one pattern, or even 1 hour, my expert can judge in 2 or 3 minutes if it's important or not. And then, of course, knowledge sharing, to really don't reinvent the wheel. If you have a follow-up project, maybe 2 or 3 years later, they should just continue on what they have done before. Great, but then we have now 5 minutes left, so really perfect timekeeping. Well done, Dimitris and Zack. So we have enough time for questions. So anyone that has already something that they would ask, please use the sharing part. Okay, so first question, maybe I think more to you, Dimitris. How should you potentially handle, let's say, sensitive information? We've seen this legal status watch. I mean, what is your take on this one?
No, super valid question. I was expecting that, because we didn't show that, because of course that can't be available for the entire company if you find something super sensitive. So my advice is that in the process that your let's say product manager or R&D expert gives you the feedback that this is technically relevant, and then the lawyer comes to that conclusion, I would say you should create like a quarantine of these patterns that are a little bit outside the global portfolio, and then until you have come to a certain decision, it should be there, so it doesn't end up with all the information that you might be discussing of what measures to take. So you start to create a hybrid out of the global, but that will be mainly for 3-4 people that should maybe access that quarantine folder. Let's put it like that, Victor.
Thank you, Dimitris. Then maybe one more question as well, connected to involving colleagues. I mean, you showed like this task sharing. So we have the question here, like, how do we really get people to follow and work on those tasks? Maybe a question to both of you, Dimitris and Zack. We know that R&D people are very often overloaded with the R&D work. So how can we make sure that we get their critical inputs?
Well, the time, the deadlines that you create, that Dimitris showed, creating in the system is urging them angrily enough in the end to pay attention that they haven't been answering. And of course, if you that created the task see that they didn't answer, then you can yourself create a reminder, because you're always, that's the benefit of having this system, because you're always up to date to what you created and what kind of answers you received or didn't receive. So everybody's busy, but this is a way of making sure everything is under control and you don't forget it.
I think, Victor, maybe just to add on it, I think in my previous life, I mean, this was my daily challenge. Everybody had no time and they didn't find it funny at all. So I think it's important that you also create an environment where they feel part of it. And I can tell you that by offering a modern interface to the user that is easy to use, because in the end of the day, what you need to put into your head is that all the engineers will always ask themselves, what's in it for me? And of course, if you give them this environment with this patent information that they can use in their daily life, I can promise you, you will see an increased activity. Then in combination, exactly what Zack said, allow the system to stress them. Then perhaps you being this super angry manager, oh, I need your input now, else I'm super angry, you know. So allow the system to do that in a gentle manner, and you will get them. And of course, you will always have the ones that will never care, but then exclude them. Then they shouldn't even be part of an evaluation process. That would also be my advice. Take them out and take in another person that is maybe more interested in that, and that's fine.
Thanks. I really agree on this one. The last question, this is more like product related, so I can directly answer it. There was a question like if automatic reminders will be sent if the deadline is not kept. And this is one of the key things we really want to do. We want to avoid that you have to manually check in Outlook or whatever, or manually follow up on things. So meaning in IMIP, when you send out a task with a deadline, if the person has not done his task, he gets reminders even, I think, 2 or 3 days before the deadline. And we even visually separate by color. Gray means it's more than 2 weeks away, the deadline, when you have the task. I think Dimitris showed that in his list. Yellow means less than a week, and red is then it's overdue. So IMIP does that for you. Good, we're exactly 11 o'clock, so maybe one final slide. Of course, we will stay a bit on if there are more questions popping up. But just to give you a feeling on the next step. So we will continue with our series of webinars, and in the next part we will look more on the monitoring, so those weekly routines of finding new relevant patent documents that should then handle in the workflow we talked today. And we really provide some good tips and tricks for the efficient setup, that you don't get too much, and as well how you can really quickly scan through that list, quickly find the important patents, and how these can be efficiently integrated in the knowledge database. So stay tuned, a lot of interesting content to come. As always, we will announce it in due time on our homepage. And yeah, from my side, first of all and foremost, thank you, Dimitris and Zack, that you joined us today. And thanks, of course, to all the participants. Always feel free to reach out to us, contact us if you have any personal questions or any specific use cases. And yeah, stay tuned.